We are going to talk about quite a big, sensitive topic. It's a topic that you'll get quite a lot of your clients will come and speak to you about it, and that's the topic of grief or sadness. We're just going to explore a bit about grief this morning for the next hour or so. So before we start, I've written a word on the board. The word's name is alexithymia. Alexithymia, it almost sounds like two ladies' names. Alexi and Themia that came together and they have formed this word. Alexithymia is a word that means not to have the verbal expression power to say what you feel. So you've got these feelings inside of you, but you do not know how to express it. You don't know how to explain to someone how or what you're feeling at this stage. That's called alexithymia. You'll get many clients who'll sit in front of you and they're going through a stage of grief or they're going through a bad patch in their lives, but they do not know how to explain it. So be aware of the fact that you can have clients who want to talk to you about stuff, but they don't know how to.
Wouldn't that be like a great majority of people?
You get, I would say, a lot of people. You get clients that come in and say, I've got this issue and this is what's going on, and they're the dream clients because they just talk. You don't work hard with them because they know what they want to talk about and you can explore what they want. Then you get the guys who come in, they feel sad, they don't feel good, there's some issues going on, but they don't know how to express. Unfortunately, most of these guys are men. Men don't know how to express feelings, we don't know how to talk about stuff. We're the guys that sit and stare, your wife will ask you what you're thinking about and you say nothing.
Why is that? Why is it that guys...
Men have the ability to not think about anything. Women don't.
Yeah. And women don't understand that.
Women don't understand how a man can think about nothing. We can. Women can't. So if you ask your husband, what are you thinking? He says nothing, he's not rude, he's genuinely not thinking of something. Okay. So take this into consideration when you work with especially a male client. We have feelings, but we don't always know how to express ourselves. So this morning we talk about grief and different aspects of grief. Now, first of all, grief is something that happens to all of us. It's an emotional response to loss. Grief is an emotional response to loss. Okay. What sort of loss?
Death.
One is death. Okay, we've got death. What else?
If a parent's had a child that's been born with a disability from birth.
Okay, disability.
Divorce.
Divorce.
Yeah.
Affected livelihood. Job.
Job.
Yeah.
Job, especially if you retire.
Yeah.
Especially that one, that's a biggie. What other?
Losing their house, losing stuff.
Financial.
This kind of stuff. Stuff is ownership, things that you lose.
Yeah.
Losing a pet, losing a dream, getting to a place where you just realize that this was my life's dream, it's not going to happen, that's the end of a dream. Grief.
Natural disasters, floods.
Disasters, floods, fires, bushfires, earthquakes, tsunami. Parents. Parents, those of you that have kids or had kids or will know that parenting is a grieving process. Because you know from day one, I know at some stage you wish they'll go, but from day one You know that you're going to get to a point where they're going to go.
Yeah.
They're only on loan to you.
They're only on loan. So I grieve my children so I can let them go. I grieve my children so I let them go, so that I can get them out of the house. Okay, so you will get a lot of people who just, your empty nest syndrome people, that just have the kids go. Okay. So grief is with us.
Yeah.
No one ever gets over grief.
No one gets over grief.
You don't get over grief.
Sometimes it's great because they won't go.
Okay. You'll get, people will say, like, someone will pass away, and they'll say, oh, don't worry, it'll get better. You'll get over it.
You never get over it.
You
No,
never get over it.
That's not strictly true.
You don't get over it.
But what
Oh,
if
but-
you, what if you don't grieve because you
Yeah.
know they're in a better place?
Yes, yeah.
You grieve, you don't, there's different ways of how we grieve, okay? But that's always there. The only difference is that you get to be at a more tolerable place. You know how to handle it. You know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
You still have to grieve.
Mm.
You lost someone, the missing will still be there.
That's
The
good.
grief is still there.
That's good.
But we know how to deal with it. Okay, so it doesn't really get better.
So doesn't time make it better?
No, time does not heal all wounds.
No.
I learn to deal with it. And I learn to continue my life journey with it.
Yeah.
It sort of becomes my companion. I journey with it. But I just have to learn how to deal with this. There's different forms of grief, and you'll find your clients will come in and they lost someone. They dealt with it great, as if they don't have grief. Then you have clients who had grief, didn't deal with it, and we've got complications.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we need to work with at this stage. I've got a family member, her child passed away 15, 20 years ago. Son died, he was about 19 years old, car accident. He was on his way to play rugby at a rugby game. On the way there, accident. He was driving the vehicle, and he and all four of the friends that were in the vehicle passed away on the scene.
Yeah, died at the scene.
This family member of mine have not dealt with the grief. Up to today, when it's the day that the kid's birthday, she'll go in an absolute depression. When it's the day of his death, she'll go in terrible depression. If you drive past the graveyard, you'll see his grave from the road because it's the biggest and the one of the most flowers. If you go to her house, the house is full of photos of him. If you go to his room, the room is exactly how it was when he died.
And how many years later is this?
We are talking about 20 years.
Wow. I know when my granddaughter passed
Doesn't
away,
deal with it.
Kelly, up until about, she's 43 this year, she was, up till she was 40, she couldn't go outside the house. The child was 3, and she would be 13 now, going on 14, and she has the same problem. Her birthday is the 8th of February, and then she lost her dad 3 years before her daughter, so from the 10th of January until the 7th of March is not a good time for her.
Yeah.
The same
It's
thing.
not a good time. You don't go there, you don't, because they are in such a dark place. They are, what I feel about these people, or my family, is that they celebrate the death of their child.
Yeah, the life.
They don't focus on his life, they don't focus on the nice things, they focus on the death. So he's not here for his birthday. So let's be sad. he died on this day.
Mm.
This terrible, it's called the terrible day. It's that terrible day again. Instead of saying, you know, when he was his 18 years, he lived with passion. He loved life. He did everything that he could. He played rugby, he played sport, he excelled in sport.
Mm.
Celebrate his life
Mm.
instead of celebrating his death.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because he was a kid that was full of energy and full of life. He would never ever dreamt of his parents, mom and dad is actually in this position, although mom is worse, to get to a place where they don't even want to sell their house and move to an old age home because he might just come back.
Mm.
I know.
Oh.
She's not that bad.
That's mental problem.
Do you know, I have to say that when I was a kid and I lost my mum at the age of 7, it took me 7 years for me to get over that. And I realised that she wouldn't come back was because I heard someone an adult say, oh, if your mother comes back, you know, if a partner comes back within 7 years, your father and your mother are still married, because by that stage Dad was in a second marriage, and it was, so isn't that funny?
Oh, so you're the 7-year mark.
So when that 7 years was up, that's when I let it go.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis wrote, he says, no one ever told me that grief was like fear. It felt like fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's fear.
There's fear involved in
Fear of loss, fear of never going to, fear of forgetting the person, fear of forgetting what this person looks like, fear of, there are so many issues with loss.
Yeah.
And I think the way a person's told, like
Yeah.
when I pulled in my driveway and I got this phone call from my son, and all he said to me is, Melita's dead. I
Oh.
went, what? Like, no, just out of the blue.
No explanation.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to deal with it. In
Oh,
the
no, he didn't. And I'm a practical person, so I just asked him to tell me again what happened, and I went straight there. But
Yes.
yeah, he didn't know how to tell me, so that was his way of telling me.
I was just going to say another part of grief is when a son or a daughter gets told that their parents have got dementia.
Yes,
That's another
different,
part of grief.
that's a different form of grief, because it's, I would say personally, I've gone through that, I had that experience, and it's, by the time, I'll never forget when Ronald Reagan passed away after having Alzheimer's for so many years. On his funeral, his son said, today we're saying goodbye to my dad, but we have lost him 3 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have already lost him, but today we're just saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a long grieving process, especially for the people involved. Now, one thing about grief is, grief works like waves, different waves. And sometimes I would say that I'm sad now because of my dad's passing, and another wave just hit me. That's sort of how I talk in my house now with my wife, is that a wave hit me. Because I'm not constantly sad,
No.
but something will happen and will trigger it, and then suddenly you've got this, I'm sad, I'm missing. So the waves work like this, this is year one when the person passed away.
Oh, that's really.
Yeah.
Okay, we get wave number one. You'll see the first year the waves are bigger. Then the waves get smaller and smaller, and then suddenly you get bigger waves and smaller waves. But this is basically how it looks like. Why is the first year the year with the biggest waves?
Because it's only new.
It's new.
It's new.
It's the year of firsts.
The emotions at its highest.
First Christmas without, first birthday without, first this without, first that without. The first year, the waves are the biggest.
Yeah, I hated the first year. Absolutely hated
The waves will continue forever, but they get smaller. They get smaller. But when you work with a client that just lost someone, your biggest concern would be year one.
Yeah.
Getting them through year one, getting them through all these firsts. And those firsts can be anything. Those firsts can be not only birthdays or whatever, it can be little things like a specific shop. It's the
They might
first
want-
time I went to that shop without that person. One thing about more elderly people that lost someone is they struggle, especially if they go to church. They struggle because it's the first time they have to go to church alone.
Yeah.
Some of them, although the church is their safety environment, their friends, their lives there, some of them will even change churches because it's too painful to go to that same place, sit in the same seat without the other person. So grief is alive and well.
Because they've done everything together, say like for so many years, and all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
the wife loses a husband or the husband loses a wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, she doesn't either want to go back there or he doesn't want to go back there.
Yeah.
And all their friends are there. And they probably don't want to face these people.
Well, I know that my mum had dementia, full-blown Alzheimer's, and she got out of the house, and my brother found her on the corner across the road from his house, and he went over to her and says, "What are you doing, Mum?" She said, "I don't know who I am
Yeah.
or where I am." And that's when because she'd had the start of dementia for about 10, 12 years, but that was, his grief started that day. That day when she said she didn't know who she was or where she was.
Or where she was. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the day of his grief.
Yes.
So I'm the practical one. Everybody else sort of went, well, but yeah, so his grief started that day.
Yeah.
That's when they decided to put her into a nursing home because they couldn't keep her in the house and they were worried about other things. So their grief, well, most of them except for me, their grief started that day.
Yeah. I also find with the partner, when one of the two needs to go to a nurse